Hello, everyone. Today is a very special day. Bez Hashem, we give the last Shia in Bobikama, and it's very exciting that I managed to keep this going every day. It's not easy, and without two people, this wouldn't happen. Two people are first, I'd like to thank my father, who always encourages me to learn Torah, and he learned with me nearly every day the daf to prepare it, and patience in the morning, at night, always there for me to help me with kashas, and Baruch Hashem, I'm very, very grateful for him. And the second person is my dear wife, Yuval Chana Alevi, that I'd never have the guts to do this and to accept on myself something like this if I wouldn't be married to such an amazing woman. And also many times I couldn't be bothered, and she pushes me, no, go give your shia, learn now, prepare, give the shia. And if not her, I'd be a lot behind. I probably wouldn't come to this day. So thank you very much, Yuval. Okay, let's go. Bobekama daf kuf yutes. Says the Gemara, V'loi mishomer peris. We learned in the Mishnah that you're not allowed to buy from people who are guarding fruit. You're not allowed to buy not fruit and not trees because we're choshes they stole it. Rav Zovin Sheviste Marisa. Rav bought, Sheviste is the part of the grape tree, the Zmoiris. It's a part where the grapes grow on, not the actual tree. It's like the branches, the top branches. Omar Abaye asked him, it says in our Mishnah, so how are you buying eitzim from or oris? So the difference between to understand the Torah, we have to understand the shomer is someone who gets paid to guard after the field. And the oris, he gets the field and he has to take care of the field and make sure to cut the trees on time and to water them, etc. And he gets a percentage in the fruit. So Rav answered, Abaye hanemile b'shomer deleste begufa da'aramidi. Shomer only gets paid, so the trees might be stolen. Why does he have trees of fruit? It's not his. Aval oris the isla b'gavei that has part. He has a partnership in the actual produce. Even with the nefshekos of him, I could take on that he's selling his part. I'm allowed to buy from him the wood. Torah Rabbanon, we learn people who are Shomer prayers, you're allowed to buy from them when they're sitting and selling, vasalim lifneim, and the baskets are in front of them, they're not hiding anything. Vertutoni, it's a type of big scale, lifneim, in front of them, because it shows that he's not hiding anything. And anyone who says hide the item you're going to buy, also, you're not allowed to buy from them because it's a big chashash that it's stolen. And you're allowed to buy from them from the entrance of the gina where it's seen, but not from the back of the gina where it's hiding. Itmar, we learned Gazlin, when are you allowed to buy from a Gazlin and take on that it's not a stolen item? If we know that most of his possessions belong to him and only a mute is stolen, you're allowed to buy from him and you go after Roiv. Even only a mute, even if less of his possessions belong to him and most are stolen, you're allowed to buy it and you can be toilet on the mute. Rav Yehuda Paskin to Ada, who's his name, Daila he was a shamish of Rabbanon, like the Shita who says, even if a mute belongs to him and Roiv is stolen, you're allowed to buy from him. Mammon Mosu, some mammon of someone who gives over people's possessions to the government, and we said you're allowed to kill him early on. Rav Huna v'Rav Yehuda chadam amuta le'avdei biyad, you're allowed to destroy his property. V'chadam, and the other one said osa le'avdei biyad, you're not allowed to. If you're allowed to kill him, for sure you're allowed to destroy his property. Maybe he's going to have kids or grandkids who are tzaddikim. And it says in the pasuk, Yochin Rosha B'ilbas Tzaddik, that a Rosha prepares and collects, and then the tzaddik wears it, meaning the tzaddik gets it. So maybe his kids or grandkids are going to get his money, and they're tzaddikim and they deserve the money, and therefore you're not allowed to destroy his money. Rav Chizda had this oris, like we said before, he gets a partnership. So Rashi says two pshatim. I'm going to go over the pshat of the Maharsha. I'm not sure if he means to say in Rashi or his own pshat, but it fits in for me better. That it means he had two types of scales. When he'd weigh a kilo for himself, he'd put on the other side of the scale a big stone that weighs really 2 kilos, and he'd say this is a 1 kilo, and he'd be stealing. And when he'd give the part that belongs to Rav Chizda, he put a small stone that's only 0.5 kilo, and to put the wheat on the other side as if it's a kilo. And he said, oh, here's your kilo, but really it was 0.5 kilo. So he was stealing from Rav Chizda. Salke, he kicked him out and didn't give him anything. And Korah Nafshe, he said on himself, this pasuk, the tzaddik will get chayil choyte, what the choyte worked for. Because the choyte here who was stealing worked for it, and Rav Chizda got it. It said in the pasuk, Kima tikvas chonef ki yivatza ki yishal eloika nafshoy. So we have here machloikes. What does it mean? Ki yishal eloika nafshoy, that someone who steals, we take away his neshama. Whose neshama loses? Rav Huna v'Rav Chizda chadom nafshoy dinigzal. The person who gets stolen from his neshama is as if it's been taken from him. The chadom, and the other shit holds nafshoy shel gazlan. It's the gazlan nefesh goes away because Hashem's going to punish him and kill him. Man dalma nafshel shel nigzal. There's another pasuk that brings a raya. Kein orchois kol boitzei abetza. That's a way of someone who steals is nefesh ba'al v'ikoch. He takes away the nefesh of the owner. Who's the owner? The nigzal. Man dalma, the shit who holds nafshel shel gazlan. It said in the pasuk, al tigzul dal kidalhu. Don't steal a poor person because he's poor. Al tidake oni bashar, and don't take away matnes anim. Ki Hashem yorev ribon v'kovais koveim nefesh. Hashem will fight their fight, and he'll, Pashas Apostle, kill the people who steal. So you could see it's nafshoy shel gazlan. V'hidoch l'chore, the other shita nami aksiv nefesh ba'alo v'ikoch. It's in the pasuk that he takes away the nefesh of the bailim, and that's the nigzal. So the Gemara, my bailov, what does it mean bailov? Bailov the ashta, the one who's a bailim now, and that means the ganev, not the nigzal. V'hidoch l'chore, the other shita nami aksiv. It's in the pasuk v'koives koiveim nefesh, that Hashem will take away the nefesh of the ganev, so it's not the nigzal. So the Gemara Torah, it's matam koma. The pasuk is saying what's the reason? Matam v'kovais koivem. Why will he punish the ganev mishum de koboy nefesh? Because he's taking away the nefesh of the nigzal. Therefore, each one fits in the psukim like his shita. Omar b'yochanon, kol hagoydeles chaver shor pruta, someone who steals from his friend, even a value of a shava pruta, ki'ilu noiteles nishmoso mimenu. It's as if he takes away his neshama away from him. Shneimar, because it's in the pasuk that we just said, ken oichos kol boitze betza. That's a way of someone who steals. As nefesh ba'al v'ikoch, he's taking away the nefesh of the owner of the nigzal. V'oiman, I have another pasuk, v'ochal ktzirecho, and he will he'll steal your produce, v'lachmecho, and your bread, bonecho b'noisecho. And he's taking away, is as if he's taking away your sons and your daughters. V'oiman, it says as well, michomos b'nei Yehuda, from the stealing of Bnei Yehuda, shashavchu dom noki ba'aratzom, that they poured blood, so we could see it's like he killing when he takes someone's money away. V'oima, and it says another pasuk, el shol vel beis adomim asher eimis es hagivoinim. It says that the punishment for Shaul because he killed the Givonim, and soon we're going to see exactly what the story over there. Says the Gemara, what does it mean? Why do we need 4 psukim for the same thing? Says the Gemara, that he's taking away only his soul of the nignav of a nefesh bonov noisev loi, but he's not taking away the souls of the kids of the nigzal. Toshma, that's why I bring the second pasuk, osa bonov of noisev, that says that he's also taking away the nefesh of his kids. Man, if you might say, that's the way he never paid, he stole. If he stole and paid for it by force, you're not called taking away someone's nefesh. Toshma, from the Chomas Bnei Yehuda, and Chomas means paying when you force someone to sell you something. This is talking about where you steal with your own hands. Aval Groma, if you only caused it, you didn't literally steal, you're not considered like a killer. Toshma, el shol vel beis adomim al asher emis is agivoinim. Shaul did something wrong that he killed the Givonim. Shaul never killed the Givonim. Because Shaul killed the whole city of Noiv because they helped David. And the Givonim used to supply water and food to the Noiv, and they used to get paid for it. And now that they killed Noiv, so they didn't have any business left, the Torah says, as if he killed them. So it's a big chiddush, even though that Shaul never killed the Givonim, he just made them lose business, as if he killed them. And we learned over here, one of the psukim is telling you that it's not only taking away the nefesh of the kids, of the nignav, it's also taking away the nefesh of the kids of the nignav. So Rav Nachman, the holy Rav Nachman, our Rebbe, says an interesting thing that fits in. I could be even brings one of his in the Likuti, maybe he brings this Gemara that I remember, but it fits in very well. He says that the person is like a tree called Sodeh, and his wife is like the branches. And what's a fruit? The fruit of a wife of the branches is his children. That's the fruit of a person when you bring new beings to the world. And he says another type of fruit that person brings to the world is his money, the money that he makes. And Rav Nachman says the siyata d'shmaya to make money and parnosa comes for your wife, like kids obviously come for your wife. Also, the money comes for your wife through her shefa. And therefore it fits in very good that if you steal, it's as if you're killing his kids, because the money is like his kids. They both the person's parents that come through his wife. Said the Gemara, you're allowed to take from the woman stuff that it's normal for them to sell. Ton Rabbanon, we learned, you're not allowed to buy from them wine and oil and flour, because that normally the husband sells. And nothing from slaves, because they probably stole it. And not from young kids, because maybe they stole it from the parents. You're allowed to buy for a small amount from a woman because she's allowed to sell it to make a type of scarf for her head. The kulam sharmu, like we said before, if anyone told you when they sold it to you, la'atmin, hide the item, also you're not allowed to buy from them. And gaboid stocker who go collecting and a woman wants to give them money, or a young kid, you're allowed to take a small amount from them for stocker, but not a big amount. People who have a place where you make a beis abad, where you make olive oil, you're allowed to buy from them olives b'midah in a big amount, because it doesn't make sense that they stole so much. V'shemen b'midah, and oil also in big amount in Pharesia. But you're not allowed to buy a small amount and hiddenly or small of olives or small amount of oil, because we're choishish that he stole it from someone who came to his Beis Habat to squeeze his oil. Rab Shimon Gamliel, you're allowed to buy olives from women in the moyed. Some girls will say here b'mot, small amounts. B'Galil Elyon, in the high parts of the Galilee. Shepamim, sometimes Adam boish limkar Pesach beisoy. As a person's embarrassed to sell like a small amount, to stand in front of his house and sell these amounts. So he gives his wife to sell, and therefore you're allowed to buy it from him. There was common that a husband would send his wife to sell at the front of the house. Ravina ikla lebei mechuza. Ravina came to a place called Bei Mechuza. Also Noshide Bei Mechuza came the ladies of Bei Mechuza. Romu Kamei, they gave him as tzedakah kabli. Kabli means necklaces, veshiri, and bracelets. Kobe mina, you accept it from them to take it for tzedakah. Omale Rabba Toisfol Ravina, Rabba Mitusfol told Ravina, Vatani, we just learned in the Brisa, Gaboid tzedakah mikabli men dovamot. You're allowed to accept from women a small amount, avaloy dovamaruba, but not big donations. Omale said Ravina to Rabba Toisfol, Ani, this amount, Libnei Mechuza, for the people of Mechuza who are rich, dovamot, it's considered a small amount, it's not considered a big donation, and therefore I'm allowed to accept it. Says the Mishnah, Muchin, these small pieces of wool, Shakoyves moitzi, that the washer, when he washes the clothes, come out, Arei l'shloik could keep it, because Balabais is no makbid on it, because it's a small amount. The Shasorik moitzi, the one who brushes the wool, and a lot of wool comes out, Arei l'shel Balabais, that belongs to the person who gave him the job to brush the wool. Koives, noitel gimel chutim v'em shloi. When he washes the clothes, he's allowed to take the 3 top strings out for himself. Yes, and if he took more than 3 arayl shel balabais, he has to give it back to the owner of the garment. Ima yashachar, if he gave him a black garment, al gabi lovon it was black, but mainly white, but it had black strings on it. Noitin es akol v'em shelo, you could take all the black ones because it's more beautiful for the garment to be white without black. Achayot sheshir sachut, Achayot got a job to sew a suit, and he left some string over kedelit for a boy, enough to sew with it, to matlishi gimel al gimel, or piece of cloth that's 3 on 3. It's boys like this. Arei elu shel balabais. That's Balabais wants that back, and you have to give it back to the Balabais. He paid for the job, and he wants all what's left. Masha charash moitzi, if he gave a carpenter to do some work, so it depends. If it's b'matzod, that small pieces, arei l'shaloi, it belongs to the carpenter. Ubeksil, if it's bigger pieces, shel Balabais, it belongs to Balabais. If he was getting paid to do hourly work by the Balabais, he didn't get paid for the job. Even the smallest little pieces belong to Balabais because he's only getting paid his hourly work. He can't take anything. Tana Rabbanan, we learned. Rabbanan learned. You're allowed to buy the small pieces of wool from the person who washes the clothes because he's allowed to keep them. A koives noitel shnei chutim alyonim v'em shloi. The koives could take the 2 strings and they his. V'loi yatil boy yoise mishloisha chuvim. It means that when Rashi explains that the people who are when you brush the clothes to clean them, so you'd put like a small hinge or small round thing at the edge of the garment and stretch it from side to side, and then it's easier to brush it. So you shouldn't put more than 3, because if you put more than 3, when you brush it, you could brush it very strong, and too much will come out from the garment, and therefore you're wasting for the balabais. But 3 is not very strong, and therefore you'll do it softly, and you won't waste the wool for the balabais. V'loi Isroik is a bereged l'shtiyot. This is Shesi and Erev. So back in the day, they'd have a machine that would work by hands and by legs, that would, to make clothes, they have strings going this way and the strings going this way. So one way is called Shesi and one side is called Erev. So it says you shouldn't brush the beged, the Shesi elele Erev, only to a specific side. Mashveyu le'orkoi, if it's not straight, to the length of the cloak, you're allowed to cut it to make it straight. Not to the width. So if you want to make it straight and it's all zigzag at the top, ad tefach rasha, you're allowed to do it until a tefach of the garment. Omar Mara, we learned shnei chutin, that the kovis is allowed to take 2 strings. Van und nan, we learned in the Mishnah Sholosh. How much is he allowed to take? 2 or 3? So the Gemara, if it's fixed strings, you're allowed to take only 2. If it's thin strings, you're allowed to take 3. Correct, the Gemara, Vatani Ipcha, we learned in the Brisa the opposite. They should do le'ervoi, not le'shisyo. So the Gemara, if it's a glima that you wear every day, you have to do it le'shesyo, because if you do it le'arvoi, it's more likely that you're going to tear it, so you have to be careful. But sarbala is something that you wear in special occasions for weddings, and you want it to look really nice. When you do it le'arvoi, even though that there's more chances that it's going to tear, it comes out looking nicer. So therefore, you do it in that case, you do it that it should look nicer, because that's the whole purpose of this garment, to wear it in special occasions. You're not allowed to do more than 3 connections to tie it, to stretch it. Boyer of Irmia, Asher of Irmia. Amtui ve'osuchat. Sorry, so I explained a bit wrong before. When it says le'yatil bo yorishim shlosh chubim, yeah, we're talking about those strings, those connections at the end of the garment that you put, let's say over here, to stretch it, and then you could stretch it. But it's not talking about that you're not allowed to put more than 3, only 3 like these round things. No, it means when you connect it to the garment, you could only connect it with 3 knots with the string, that then it won't be very strong, and therefore you won't extra stretch it. So Ravimi asked the Shaila, when you go with the needle in and back out, is that considered 1? And therefore you could do, when we say 3, it means total 6. 1, 2, 3. Or Dilma, maybe I'm 2 Trey, every time going through is considered 2, so therefore you're only allowed 3, literally 1, 2, and 3. So the Gemara teiku tishbir taret kushis v'boyes. Mashvir le'orko avaloy le'rochboy. If you need to cut it and make it straight, you cut the length and not the width. V'atanya ipcha, in the bright side says the opposite. What's pshat? Lo ikashia habe glima habe imuni. Glima you allowed le'orko, like you're allowed to cut it le'orko. Himyune, you only see 2 of the width sides, not the lengths. When you wear it, it's a type of clothes that you wear different, so you're only allowed to cut the sides that you see, not the sides that you don't see. So it depends what type of garment, wherever it makes more sense for that type of garment, that's the way you should do it. Rabbanon learned, you're not allowed to take someone who brushes the garment. You're not allowed to take the pieces that come out of it. You're not allowed to buy off him because she stole it. If the minig is that he does get it, you're allowed to buy it off him. In every place, doesn't matter what the minig is, you're allowed to buy a cushion full of muchin, the keses, and a different type of cushion, mole muchin. My time koninu b'shinui, because it's already a shinui, and it's koninu b'shinu mais, and therefore it says, and you're allowed to be koninu off him. Tonu Rabbanon, ein loikhim migardi. You're not allowed to take from the gardi. Gardi is a person who sews clothes from scratch. He makes the cloth. Loi irin it's a type of wool that you put. It's a bit hard to explain this Gemara because we don't really have in our mind how exactly the null looked like. But it's irin and nirin veloy purdinin veloy shur pakuyos. It's different types of parts that you need to use when you make a garment and it belongs to balabais. You're allowed to take from them something, a beged, even though that's minuma, even though that has lots of different colors and it looks like he stole a little bit over here, a little bit from this guy, a little bit from this guy, and he made a jump out of it. You're allowed to buy that because again, there's shinui. Even though that has different colors. Tovoi, Erev v'shosi tovoi v'orig. And you're allowed to take from them the cloth, the strings. So there's two things over here. Strings are already made into a string, and also something that's already tovi, that's already into a cloth. So the Gemara Amri Ashdo tovi shakli orig miboye. If already you're allowed to take something that was made into a string because it was koine b'shinui, for sure something that's made into a beged, what's the chiddush? So the Gemara, my orig tichi. Orig is a type of tichi. Tichi means string, sharshoris, Rashi says, and it's done without being made into a string first. Therefore, it didn't go through the process of being stringed into a thread. It wasn't a thread yet. So therefore, that's a chiddush, even though that wasn't in a thread, but because he did a different shinu to it, he's koine and you're allowed to buy it off him. Tana Rabbanon. Rabbanon learned, en lo yikrim in a tzavo from a painter, lo oisois v'lo dugmois, v'lo tlushin shel tzemer. So from a painter, you're not allowed to take oisois, or when the owner gives the painter he wants him to paint this talus into green. So he cuts a small piece off, and we check over there if the paint catches well, how it looks, if he likes it. And sometimes the owner leaves it by him, but really he has to give it back to the owner. So you're not allowed to buy it off him. Dugmois or samples that the owner brought to show him, I want you to paint this color, and he brings him a small piece of cloth that's already painted and also belongs back to the owner. It means pieces of tzemer that cut off a little by little. You're allowed to buy off them a painted garment and tovu b'godim, and something that's made into a thread and clothes. Ask the Gemara, Ashto tovu shokil, if I'm allowed to take a thread, something that's made into a thread, godim iboy, for sure I could take godim. Godim is with the later stage. So the Gemara, my godim nimti, we had this early on. It's a type of clothes that are not tovui, and therefore it's a chiddush. Even though that's not tovui, he's koine that by he made it into clothes. It's like pressed wool all together, and you're allowed to buy off him because he's koine b'shinu. Tana Rabbanon, anoisin oris la'avdon, so he gave skins to the person who deals with leather. Akitsuim, the pieces on the side, they cut off the leather on the side. Vatlushin, and the wool that comes off from the skin, areilu shel balabais, it belongs to the owner. Va'oileu mishetef hamayim, what comes out from washing the leather and comes out some wool out of that, areilu shelo, that small amount, and that the balabais no makpid, and it belongs to the person who deals with the leather. Imo yashachar, we learned in the Mishnah that if it was a black strings on white garment, you're allowed to take out even more than 3. Omar Rav Yehuda katzra shmei chayet, a tailor is called in Aramaic katzra, the katzra shokil, and he takes the katzra because not the tailor, the washer is called the katzra, and because in Aramaic, and katzra, and means katzra means he makes it short, and he makes the beggar short because he takes part of the beggar to himself. Basically, like it's called the katzra because he makes it shorter. Omar Rav Yehuda, akol oilim leminyan tcheles. So if those 3 strings at the end of the beged are still left, and you want to do tcheles, tzitzis, so it's oil eliminant tcheles, meaning at the side of the beged, when you have the tzitzis, the whole of the tzitzis is a certain amount away, distant from the edge of the beged, and it has to be a minimum amount away. It can't be literally at the edge of the beged. It has to be a certain amount away. So can I count those 3 strings as part of the beged, and will be part of the cheshbon of how much distance I need to keep away from the edge, or that's not considered part of the beged? So Rav Yehuda says, all these strings are part of the beged, and therefore you could count from the edge of the strings to know how much distance you need from the edge of the beged to put in your tcheles. Yitzchak Bri copied alayu. But Yitzchak, my son, is makbid, and he takes them out, and only afterwards he measures from literally the beged itself, and he puts the tcheles in the right place. He's more makbid than me. A tailor who left the string, so he said if it's enough to sew with it, you have to give it back to Balabais. Said the Gemara, for how much is it considered that you could sew with it? Omar Rav Asi says Meloi Machat, the full length of a needle. Ask the Gemara, Meloi Machat v'chutz la-machat, a full length of a needle and a little more than the needle. Not a little more, and more than the needle. And v'chutz la-machat, we're going to see in a second exactly how much it means. Yiboilu, they asked the Shaila, Meloi Machat v'chutz la-machat, and more than a needle. Kimloi Machat, that means twice the length of a needle. Oy Dilma, maybe Meloi Machat, it means a full length of a needle, v'chutz la-machat mashu, and a little bit more, not much more, not double. Toshma, come and listen. The Tani, we learned in the Brisa, Chayet Shishir Sachut, tailor who left some of the string pochos michtei litfoy, boy, less than you could sew with it, matli shipchusa mishalosh al shalosh, and a piece of cloth that's less than 3 and 3 tfochim fingers. Bisman shebalabais makbid, if the balabais is makbid on it, alein areilu shebalabais, you have to give it back to balabais. And balabais makbid alein, if the balabais is no makbid areilu shloi, it belongs to the tailor. So now, when we said kedei litfoy bori means double the length of a needle, so pochos mikan. So when the Brisa over here is talking about less than a kedei litfoy bori chazil esichsa, you could still use it for what we said at the top of the page when you sewing the round things to stretch the cloth that you're cleaning. You still have what to do with it. So therefore, the Brisa is discussing if he's makbid or not makbid, who it belongs to. Ela yirmas miloi machat v'chutz la-machat mashu. When it says kedei litfoy bori, it means the length of a needle and a little bit more. Poches v'kan milmai chos. It's not any value, so why should anyone care about it? Elo shma mino. What do we see from here? Miloi machat. When it says miloi machat, it means v'chutz la-machat kimiloi machat. It means a needle, the length of a needle, and another needle, shma mino, and therefore the other Brisa makes sense. If it's less than that, they could still do something with it, but not properly sew with it. Then it depends if balabais is makbid or not. Masha charish, what the carpenter takes out. B'raminu, we have a kasha. Masha charish moitzi, what the carpenter takes out the pieces b'ma'atzad on this, with a type of tool that's called a matzad. V'anifsak b'megura, and something the pieces of wood they cut with the sword. Areilu shel balabais, that belongs to the balabais. And what did we say in the Mishnah? The matzad. Areilu sheloi, it's l'chayra stira. Continues the Brisa, that's already the stira. Continues, let's see the Brisa again. V'raminu masha charish moiti b'matzad v'anifsak b'megura areilu shel balabais. What comes from the drilling, the small pieces of mitachas reitini, and from the reitini, it's another tool that the carpenter use. V'anigra b'megira, and the small pieces that come when you cut the wood, the sawdust, areilu sheloi, belongs to him. So l'chor it's a stira b'matzad, does it belong to him or does it belong to balabais? A stira between the Mishnah and the Brisa. Amarava be'asra the Tani Didon, in the place where our Mishnah, in the Tana of the Mishnah, Ikatarti, there was 2 types of matzad, chatzini, tarti chatzini, two types of chatzini. Lerabossi, to the big one, korele ksil. They called it ksil. Luzutri, to the small one, korele matzat. And it's only small pieces that come out. And therefore, it belongs to the carpenter. The Astra, the Tanabara, in the place where the brisa that we brought was different. Chadhu deika. There was only one matzah, the korele matzah, and it was they call it matzah, and it was a big one, and therefore the pieces are bigger, and therefore it goes to balabai. So there's no stira. It's just a different way of calling a tool, and therefore there's no stira between the Mishnah and the brisa. I'm going to leave the last part of the Gemara for when I'm going to do a Sion Be'ezras Hashem, the Simcha Gdoila. I want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who was mezakeh me to finish Baba Kama and to give the Shia, and I hope people enjoy it. And for sure I enjoy it. It says, Mitalmidei Yosem Mikulam, that the ones you learn the most from is from your Talmidim. So by doing the Shia on YouTube, I had a big chiddush. The Talmidei Yosem Mikulam, if you give a Shia, even if you don't have Talmidim, you learn a lot from it. Thank you very much. Everyone should have bizoicha to finish this Masechta and the whole Shas and continue Michael. Shkoyach.